The room fell silent the moment she walked in. Not the kind of silence that comes from respect. This was the uncomfortable, sideways glance kind. The kind that said she didn't belong. Admiral Garrison sat behind his desk, fingers steepled, jaw set like granite. His office smelled of old leather and stale coffee, the kind of place where careers were made or buried. On the wall behind him hung photos of men in flight suits, arms crossed, eyes hard. None of them looked like her. Captain Vila Marsh stood at attention, her boots polished to mirrors, her uniform pressed sharp enough to cut. She didn't flinch, didn't speak, just waited. The Admiral's eyes moved over her like she was a problem he hadn't asked for. Outside the window, the tarmac shimmered in the heat, and somewhere in the distance, an F-16 howled into the sky. She could feel it in her chest, the pull of the jet wash, the roar that made your ribs vibrate. But she wasn't flying today. She was here, being told something she already knew was coming. "Captain Marsh," Garrison finally said, his voice flat. "There's been a decision made above my pay grade. You're being reassigned." He slid a folder across the desk. She didn't reach for it. "You'll be transporting a VIP convoy through hostile airspace, close air support, low altitude, high risk." He paused, watching her face for a reaction. She gave him nothing. "This isn't a glory run, Captain. It's a babysitting job." Someone in the corner, a lieutenant colonel she didn't recognize, snorted. She didn't turn her head. "Understood, sir," she said. Her voice was calm, steady. The Admiral leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "You've got a reputation, Marsh. Some say you're good, others say you're reckless." He let the words hang there. "I'm putting you on this mission because I don't have a choice. But if you screw this up, you're done. Copy?" "Copy, sir." He waved her off like she was already gone. She took the folder, turned on her heel, and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and she exhaled slowly. Her hands didn't shake. They never did. In the hallway, two junior officers whispered as she passed. She heard the words "diversity hire" and "lucky to even be here." She kept walking. Her call sign wasn't on her uniform. Not yet, but it would be soon. And when it was, none of this would matter, because call signs weren't given, they were earned. And hers had been paid for in blood, sand, and a night in Helmand Province that no one talked about anymore, except the SEALs who were there. They remembered. She pushed through the double doors into the sunlight, squinting against the glare. Across the flight line, her A-10 Thunderbolt II sat waiting, ugly and brutal and perfect. The Warthog, built to take punishment, built to deliver it. She ran her hand along the fuselage, feeling the rivets under her palm. The jet smelled like fuel and fire. It always did. Somewhere behind her, a voice called out, "Yo, Captain, heard you got the convoy gig. That's rough." She turned. A young pilot, fresh-faced, grinning like this was all a game. She didn't smile back. "It's just another mission," she said. He shrugged. "Yeah, but, low-altitude escort duty, that's not exactly Top Gun." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned back to her jet. "Top Gun's for people who need cameras," she said. "I just need the sky." The briefing room was packed. 30 operators, all muscle and beards and quiet competence. Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, a handful of Air Force combat controllers. They sat in rows, arms crossed, faces unreadable. At the front of the room, a major with a thick Boston accent tapped the screen behind him. A map of northern Syria glowed in red and orange zones. Hostile territory. No-fly zones. Surface-to-air threats. The works. Vila sat near the back, notebook open, pen in hand. She didn't need to write anything down. She never did. But it kept people from starring. The major droned on about timelines, extraction points, radio frequencies, standard stuff. Then he got to the air support section. "Close air support will be provided by Captain Marsh, call sign Reaper 17, flying an A-10C out of Al Dafra." A few heads turned. She kept her eyes forward. "Captain Marsh has over 2,000 flight hours in the Warthog. She'll be your guardian angel on this one." Silence. Then from somewhere in the middle of the room, a voice, gravelly, older. "Reaper 17, the room shifted. Heads turned. A man in the third row stood slowly. Mid-40s, graying beard, chest full of ribbons, a SEAL Master Chief. His eyes locked on her, and for a moment the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Then he smiled, not a smirk, not sarcasm, a real smile. "Holy shit," he said quietly. "You're Reaper." Vila met his eyes, didn't blink. "That's the call sign, Chief." He walked toward her and the room parted like water. When he reached her, he extended his hand. She took it. His grip was firm, respectful. "Chief Holloway," he said. "I was on the ground in Helmand, October 2019. Her jaw tightened, just barely. "I remember. You saved my entire squad that night. Came in hot with no eyes on target, no FAC, nothing. Just followed our beacon through a sandstorm and lit up an entire Taliban compound while we extracted under fire." He looked around the room, his voice rising. "This pilot flew 3 passes at 50 feet in 0 visibility while taking AAA fire. She didn't leave until every one of us was out." The room was dead silent now. Holloway turned back to her. "We put you in for a Silver Star. Did you ever get it?" She shook her head. "Paperwork got lost." He cursed under his breath. "Of course it did." Another SEAL stood. Then another. Within seconds, half the room was on its feet, not applauding, just standing, a gesture of respect. Vila felt something tighten in her chest, but she kept her face neutral. "Thank you, Chief," she said quietly. "But that was a long time ago." "Not to us," he said. The major at the front cleared his throat. "Right, well, glad we've got that cleared up. Captain Marsh, you'll coordinate directly with ground elements via secure frequency. Any questions?" She shook her head. "No, sir. Good. Wheels up at 0600, dismissed." Outside, the desert air was cool now, the sun dipping low behind the mountains. Vila stood by her jet, helmet tucked under her arm, staring at the horizon. Holloway approached, hands in his pockets. "You don't talk much, do you?" he said. She glanced at him. "Not when I don't need to." He nodded, looking up at the warthog. "Ugly bird. Best kind," he chuckled. "You know, after that night in Helmand, we tried to find out who you were. All we had was your call sign. Command wouldn't tell us anything. They usually don't." "Why Reaper?" he asked. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because I collect the ones no one else will." He studied her face, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get it." She climbed the ladder, settling into the cockpit. The ejection seat cradled her like an old friend. She ran through her checks: stick, rudder, throttle, instruments, everything green. Holloway stood at the base of the ladder, looking up. "Hey, Reaper," he called. She glanced down. "We're counting on you tomorrow." She pulled her visor down. "You always were, Chief." The canopy hissed shut and the twin turbofans roared to life. The warthog shuddered, alive and hungry. She taxied toward the runway, the world narrowing to the strip of concrete ahead and the endless sky beyond. This is where she belonged, not in some admiral's office, not in a briefing room full of stairs. Here, where the only thing that mattered was the mission, and the people counting on her to bring them home. The morning came fast and cold. Vila sat in the cockpit, engines humming, waiting for clearance. The sun was just a sliver on the horizon, painting the desert in shades of amber and rust. Her hands rested lightly on the controls, fingers tracing the worn edges of the throttle. She'd flown this bird 100 times, maybe more. Every scratch, every dent, every panel that didn't quite line up, she knew them all. The radio crackled. "Reaper 17, this is Tower. You are cleared for departure. Winds 270 at 12 knots. Altimeter 2997. Good hunting." Reaper 17 copies, rolling. She pushed the throttles forward. The warthog lurched, then roared, accelerating down the runway. The nose lifted. The ground fell away. And just like that, she was airborne. The desert spread out beneath her, endless and indifferent. She banked east, climbing to 15,000 feet, then leveled off. The convoy was already moving. 12 vehicles, 60 operators threading through the valleys below. She could see their dust trails, faint and ghostly in the early light. "Reaper, this is Warlord Actual. We are Oscar Mike. Acknowledge." "Warlord Reaper 17, I have eyes on, holding high cover." "Copy, Reaper, stay close." She adjusted her course, matching their speed. The terrain below was a maze of ridges and gullies, perfect ambush country. Her eyes scanned the horizon, checking thermals, checking threats. Nothing yet, but there would be. There always was. She thought about Holloway sitting in one of those trucks, weapon across his lap, watching the rocks, trusting her. The radio hissed. "Reaper Warlord, we've got movement. Ridge line 3 o'clock, possible hostiles." Her pulse didn't change. "Warlord Reaper, I'm scanning, stand by." She rolled right, dropping altitude, eyes narrowing there, a glint of metal. Maybe a vehicle, maybe a weapon, hard to tell. "Warlord Reaper, confirm visual." "I see one technical armed personnel visible, holding position on the ridge." "Reaper, can you engage?" Negative, too close to civilian structures. I need positive ID. Copy, moving to investigate. She circled low and slow, watching the convoy edge forward. Then the ridge exploded, muzzle flashes, RPG trails. The convoy scattered, vehicles peeling off in 3 directions. Her radio lit up. Reaper, Warlord, we are taking effective fire, multiple hostiles. Request immediate CAS. Her hand was already moving. Warlord, Reaper, I'm inbound, danger close, mark your positions. Marked, IR strobes active. She rolled inverted, pulled the nose down, and dove. The warthog screamed. The world tilted. The ridge rushed up. She saw them now, 15, maybe 20 fighters dug in behind rocks, firing down at the convoy. She lined up, squeezed the trigger. The GAU-8 Avenger roared. 30mm rounds chewed through the ridge like a chainsaw through butter. Dust, fire, bodies. Pulled up hard, the G-forces crushing her into the seat. Warlord, Reaper, first pass complete, assessing. Reaper, Warlord, good hits, but we've got more coming from the north. She banked hard, scanning. There another group moving fast, trying to flank. Warlord, I see them, rolling in. This time she came in low, barely 100 feet off the deck. The warthog's shadow raced across the sand. She fired again. The gun roared. The earth erupted. When she pulled up, there was nothing left but smoke. The convoy regrouped in a wadi, engines idling, operators scanning the high ground. Vila circled overhead, eyes sharp, watching for movement. The radio was quieter now, just the hiss of static and the occasional position check. She checked her fuel, enough for another hour, maybe 2 if she pushed it. Reaper, Warlord, situation stable, we're consolidating, thanks for the cover. Warlord, Reaper, just doing my job. Well, do it somewhere else. We're about to call in an airstrike on that northern compound. Don't want you catching any splash damage. She smiled just a little. Copy that, I'll hold at altitude. She climbed back up, letting the warthog settle into a lazy orbit. Below, the convoy moved again, slower now, more cautious. The sun was higher, the heat building. Her visor darkened automatically. She took a sip of water from the tube by her mouth, then adjusted her seat straps. The mission was going well, too well. That made her nervous. Holloway's voice crackled through. Reaper, Warlord, actual, quick question. Go ahead, Chief. That thing you said yesterday about collecting the ones no one else will, what you mean by that? She was quiet for a moment, watching the desert scroll by beneath her. I mean, I don't leave people behind, she said, even when it's easier to. Yeah, he said, I figured. She didn't respond, didn't need to, he understood. They all did now. The radio crackled again, a different voice this time. Urgent, tight. Reaper, this is Warlord 2-3. We have a vehicle down, IED strike, 2 casualties. We need immediate medevac. Her stomach dropped. Warlord 2-3, Reaper, what's your position? Grid, November, Quebec 7462. We're pinned, taking sporadic fire from the east. She pulled up the map on her display, cross-referencing the grid. They were in a valley, surrounded on 3 sides. No way out except through the bottleneck. And the enemy knew it. Warlord, Reaper, I'm on my way, hold tight. She nosed over, diving hard. The altimeter unwound, 10,864. The world rushed up. She leveled off at 2,000 feet, scanning the valley. There, the disabled vehicle, smoking, tilted on its side. Operators crouched behind it, firing east. She saw the muzzle flashes, saw the shapes moving in the rocks. Warlord 2-3, Reaper, I have eyes on, marking hostiles. Get ready to move. Reaper, we can't move. Are wounded. I'll make you a path, trust me. She armed her Mavericks, locked onto the largest cluster of heat signatures, and fired. The missile streaked down, a white line of death. It hit. The explosion shook the valley. Rocks tumbled. Fire bloomed. She fired again, then again. 3 missiles, 3 hits. The eastern ridge collapsed. Warlord 2-3, Reaper, you're clear. Move now. Reaper, Warlord 2-3, moving. She watched them scramble, dragging the wounded, piling into the remaining vehicles. They punched through the bottleneck, engines screaming, kicking up dust. She stayed overhead, circling, watching, waiting. The enemy didn't follow. They couldn't. She'd made sure of that. Reaper, Warlord 2-3, we're clear. You just saved our lives. She exhaled slowly. That's the job, 2-3. No, the voice said. That's something else. They reached the forward operating base just after noon. The convoy rolled through the gate, dust-covered and exhausted. Vila touched down 10 minutes later, the warthog's tires barking against the tarmac. She taxied to the hardstand, shut down the engines, and popped the canopy. The heat hit her like a wall. She climbed down, legs stiff, helmet under her arm. The ground crew rushed over, already running checks, refueling, rearming. She walked toward the debriefing building, boots crunching on gravel. Holloway was waiting outside, leaning against a Humvee, arms crossed. He straightened when he saw her. "Reaper, Chief. Hell of a show out there," she shrugged. "Just another day." He shook his head, smiling. "Not for us. You pulled 2-3 out of a kill box. They'd be dead if you hadn't been there." She didn't respond, didn't know what to say. Holloway stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You know, most pilots stay high, drop their ordnance and leave, but you get down in the dirt with us. Why?" She looked past him toward the mountains. "Because that's where you are." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I get it." Inside, the debriefing was quick. Maps, timelines, enemy casualties, friendly wounded. 2 injured, neither critical, mission success. The major in charge, a different one this time, thanked her personally. She nodded, filed her report, and left. Outside, the sun was brutal, the sky white with heat. She walked to the mess tent, grabbed a bottle of water and a tray of something that might have been chicken. She sat alone, eating slowly, staring at nothing. Around her, operators talked, laughed, clapped each other on the back. She listened without listening, present but apart. It had always been like this. Even before the flight suit, before the call sign, before any of it, alone in a crowd. A young airman approached, hesitant. "Excuse me, Captain Marsh." She looked up. "Yeah. I just wanted to say. I saw your gun camera footage. From today, it was incredible." She took a sip of water. "It was just shooting." "No, ma'am, it was art." She almost smiled, almost. "Thanks, Airman." He nodded, hurried away. She finished her meal, tossed the tray, and walked back to her quarters. A metal container with a cot, a footlocker, and a single window. She stripped off her flight suit down to her tank top and shorts and lay down. The cot creaked. She stared at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of generators. She thought about the Admiral's office, the whispers, the looks. None of it mattered now. Out here in the dirt and the fire, the only thing that mattered was what you did, and she'd done her job. She closed her eyes. Sleep came fast. The next mission launched at dawn. Same convoy, different route. Deeper into hostile territory this time, toward a suspected weapons cache near the border. Vila flew the same bird, same loadout. GAU-8 with 1,100 rounds, 4 Mavericks, 2 rocket pods, enough to level a city block. She climbed to altitude, linked up with the convoy, and settled into her orbit. The sky was clear, the visibility perfect. She could see for miles. The radio was calm, professional. "Reaper, Warlord. We're approaching checkpoint Alpha. No contact." "Warlord, Reaper. Copy, I'm holding position." She scanned the horizon, checking her instruments, checking the ground. Everything quiet, too quiet. The convoy pushed forward, threading through a narrow valley. Sheer cliffs on both sides, barely wide enough for 2 vehicles. She didn't like it. "Warlord, Reaper, that's a choke point. Recommend alternate route." "Reaper, Warlord, negative. This is the only way through. We're committed." She bit her lip, watching them inch forward. The cliffs loomed high, casting long shadows. Then the radio exploded. "Contact, contact, ambush." Gunfire, shouting. The convoy stopped, vehicles blocked in both directions. She saw the muzzle flashes, both sides of the valley, high up in the rocks. Dozens of them, maybe more. "Warlord, Reaper, I'm engaging." She rolled in, nose down, the cliffs rushing up on either side. She picked a target, a cluster of fighters on the left wall, and fired. The gun roared. Rock and body parts flew. She pulled up hard, barely clearing the ridgeline. "Reaper, Warlord, they're on both sides. We can't maneuver." "Copy, I'm coming around." She banked hard, lining up on the right side. But as she dove, something streaked up from the ground, a missile, heat-seeking. She didn't think, just reacted. Flares, chaff. She kicked the rudder hard, braking left. The missile missed by feet. She felt the shockwave, her heart hammered. The missile detonated behind her, a fireball in the sky. Pulled out, breathing hard. "Reaper, Warlord, you okay?" "I'm fine, stay focused." She came around again, lower this time, faster. She saw the launcher, a man crouched behind a boulder, reloading. She fired. He disappeared. The boulder cracked in half. "Reaper, Warlord, we're taking heavy casualties. We need immediate CAS." "I'm right here, Warlord, marking your positions." She saw the IR strobes blinking like stars in the dust. She lined up, careful, precise. Then she unleashed hell. Rockets. Missiles, the gun, everything. The valley lit up. The cliffs shook. When the smoke cleared, the ambush was over. Bodies, wreckage, silence. Warlord Reaper, valley is clear, you're free to move. Reaper, thank you. She didn't respond, just circled overhead, watching them regroup, watching them roll forward. Her hands were shaking now, just a little. She flexed her fingers, gripped the stick. She'd almost died. 1 second slower and that missile would have found her. She exhaled, forced herself to focus. The mission wasn't over. They reached the target site by mid-afternoon. An abandoned compound, low stone walls, rusted vehicles scattered around. The convoy spread out, operators moving on foot, weapons up. Vila stayed high, watching. Reaper, Warlord, we're moving in, keep us covered. Copy, Warlord. She watched them enter the compound, room by room, methodical. Minutes passed. Then the radio crackled. Reaper, Warlord, we've got something. Big cash. Weapons, explosives, communications equipment. This is a major find. Warlord Reaper, congrats. How long until you're done? Maybe 30 minutes, we're photographing everything. She nodded to herself, adjusting her orbit. 30 minutes. Easy. Except then the new voice cut in, cold, clipped. Reaper 17, this is Overwatch. We have SIGINT indicating enemy reinforcements en route to your position. ETA 15 minutes. Her blood went cold. Overwatch Reaper, copy, passing to ground. She switched frequencies. Warlord Reaper. You've got company coming, multiple hostiles, ETA 15 mics. Reaper, Warlord, we need more time. You don't have it, I'm seeing vehicle movement from the north, at least 6 technicals. Can you engage? Not yet, they're still out of range. She watched the dust clouds grow closer, faster, they weren't slowing down. Warlord Reaper, they're moving fast, you need to extract now. Reaper, we're almost done. Now, Chief, silence. Then Holloway's voice tight, copy, we're moving. She watched the operators sprint back to their vehicles, engines roaring to life. The convoy started rolling, kicking up dust, but the enemy was closing. She had maybe 5 minutes before they arrived. She armed her weapons, checked her fuel. Enough, barely. The technicals came into view, pickup trucks with mounted machine guns bristling with fighters. She counted 8. No, 10. She rolled in. The GAU-8 spoke. The lead truck disintegrated. She pulled up, banked hard, came around. Fired again. Another truck exploded, flipping end over end. The rest scattered, spreading out, firing wildly at the sky. She felt rounds ping off her armor. The Warthog shuddered but held. Warlord Reaper, I'm slowing them down, keep moving. Reaper, we're clear of the compound. Good, head south, I'll cover your 6. She made 3 more passes, each one closer, each one more dangerous. The enemy fire intensified. Her cockpit alarm screamed. Missile lock. She dumped flares, broke hard left. The missile missed, barely. Reaper, Overwatch, we're tracking another wave, 12 vehicles, ETA 10 minutes, she cursed under her breath. Overwatch Reaper, I'm almost Winchester, I can't hold them off forever. Reaper, air support is inbound, Vipers en route, ETA 8 minutes. 8 minutes. She had to buy them 8 minutes. She looked down at the convoy racing across the desert, dust trailing behind them like a comet. She thought about Holloway, about his squad, about that night in Helmand. She'd come back for them then, she'd come back for them now. She nosed over, dove again, and kept firing. The Vipers arrived like thunder. 2 Apache gunships blacked out, bristling with hellfires and chain guns. They tore into the enemy convoy, missiles streaking, explosions chaining across the desert. Vila pulled up, cleared the airspace, and climbed. Her fuel light was blinking red, she was almost dry. Reaper, Viper lead, we've got it from here, RTB. Viper lead, Reaper, copy, good hunting. She turned south, setting course for base. Her hands were still shaking. The adrenaline was fading now, replaced by exhaustion. She glanced at her instruments, fuel critical, she'd make it, barely. The radio crackled. Reaper, Warlord, we're clear thanks to you, she smiled just a little. Anytime, Chief. You know you really are the Reaper, death from above. Only to the ones who deserve it. She flew on, the sun sinking low, the desert turning gold. The base appeared on the horizon, a smudge of buildings and runway lights. She called the tower, got clearance, and brought the Warthog in. The landing was smooth. The engine spooled down. She sat in the cockpit for a moment, just breathing, then she climbed out. Holloway was waiting on the tarmac along with the rest of his squad. They stood in a line, weapons slung, faces hard but eyes warm. She walked toward them, helmet tucked under her arm. Holloway stepped forward. Captain Marsh, on behalf of my entire team, I want to say thank you. You didn't just keep us safe. You brought us home. She nodded, throat tight. That's the job. No, he said, that's brotherhood and you've earned it. He extended his hand, she took it. The rest of the squad clapped, a slow, steady rhythm. She didn't know what to say, so she just stood there, letting the moment wash over her. Then Holloway leaned in, his voice low. There's something else you should know. We put in another recommendation, Silver Star. This time it's going through, I made sure of it. She blinked. Chief, you don't have to. Yes, I do, because you deserve it and because the world needs to know what you did. She looked away, blinking hard. I'm just a pilot. No, he said. You're a damn hero. She didn't argue, just nodded. Later in her quarters, she lay on her cot, staring at the ceiling. She thought about the Admiral, about the whispers, about the looks. None of it mattered. She'd proven herself. Not to them, to the people who counted. The ones on the ground. The ones she'd brought home. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in a long time, she slept without dreaming. The Silver Star ceremony was held 3 weeks later back at the main base. A sunny day, the sky impossibly blue. Rows of chairs, a podium, flags snapping in the wind. Vila stood at attention in her dress uniform, hands at her sides. She hated ceremonies, hated the attention, but she stood there anyway, because Holloway had asked her to. The base commander, a 2-star general she'd never met, read the citation, her actions in Helmand, her actions in Syria, the lives saved, the missions completed. The risk taken without hesitation. The crowd applauded. She didn't smile, just stood there, stiff and straight. The general pinned the medal to her chest, then stepped back and saluted. She returned it. When she turned to leave, she saw them, rows of operators, SEALs, Rangers, Marines, all standing, all watching. Holloway was in the front row, arms crossed, grinning. She met his eyes and he nodded. She nodded back. After the ceremony, there was a reception. People she didn't know congratulated her, shook her hand, told her she was an inspiration. She smiled politely, thanked them, and slipped away as soon as she could. Outside, the tarmac was empty. She walked to her jet, parked in the corner, alone. The Warthog looked battered, scarred, ugly. Perfect. She ran her hand along the fuselage, feeling the metal under her palm. Someone cleared their throat behind her. She turned. Admiral Garrison stood there, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. Captain Marsh. Admiral. He stepped closer, glancing at the jet. I owe you an apology. She didn't respond, just waited. I underestimated you and I let my prejudices cloud my judgment. That was wrong. She studied his face. He looked older now, tired. It happens, she said. Not to me, not usually. He paused. For what it's worth, you're one of the best pilots I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. She nodded. Thank you, sir. He extended his hand. She took it. When he left, she turned back to the jet. The sun was setting now, the sky streaked with red and orange. She thought about call signs, about reputations, about the way people saw you and the way you saw yourself. She'd been called a lot of things, lucky, reckless, a diversity hire, but the only name that mattered was the one she'd earned, Reaper. Not because she brought death, but because she brought people home from it. She climbed the ladder, settled into the cockpit, and just sat there, not flying, just being. The sky stretched out before her, endless and free. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. Years passed. Vila flew more missions, more convoys, more close calls. She collected call signs like some people collected scars, Reaper, Angel, Guardian, each one a story, each one a life saved. She didn't talk about them, didn't need to, the operators knew, and that was enough. Then one day she got a call, a young woman fresh out of flight school assigned to the same unit. Her name was Lieutenant Karis Tan, and she was terrified. Vila met her in the ready room, clipboard in hand, eyes wide. Captain Marsh, I'm your new wingman. Vila looked her over, small, barely 25, hands shaking just a little. You ever flown combat? No, ma'am. You will, she handed Karis a helmet. Stay on my wing, do what I do, don't overthink it. Yes, ma'am. They flew together the next day, a routine patrol, nothing major. But Karis was nervous, her radio chatter clipped and tight. Vila stayed close, guiding her through the turns, the checks, the scans. Relax, Tan. The jet knows what it's doing, you just have to listen. Copy, Reaper. By the end of the flight, Karis was smiling. When they landed, she climbed out of her cockpit, grinning like a kid. That was amazing, Vila nodded. It always is. Over the next few months, Vila trained Karis, taught her everything, how to read the terrain, how to spot threats, how to stay calm when the world was on fire. Karis soaked it up, hungry and eager. She reminded Vila of herself years ago, the same fire. The same determination. One night after a particularly rough mission, Karis found Vila in the mess tent, staring at a cup of coffee. "Captain, can I ask you something?" Vila looked up. "Shoot. How do you do it? Stay calm, I mean, when everything's falling apart." Vila was quiet for a moment, then she said, "Because the people on the ground are counting on me and I don't let people down." Karis nodded slowly. "Is that why they call you Reaper?" "Partly." "What's the other part?" Vila smiled just a little. "Because I bring people home, even when death's already marked them." Karis stared at her, then nodded. "I want to be like you. You will be, just give it time." And she was. Karis earned her call sign a year later, Shade, for the way she moved, quiet and deadly. Vila was there when they gave it to her, standing in the back of the room, arms crossed, proud. Karis found her afterward, eyes shining. "I did it." "You did. Thank you, Captain, for everything." Vila nodded. "Just do me a favor, pass it on, train the next one." "I will," and she did. Vila retired after 15 years. Not because she wanted to, but because her body couldn't take it anymore. Too many G-forces, too many hard landings, too many nights in the cockpit. Her back ached. Her knees creaked. The flight surgeon grounded her and she didn't fight it. She knew when it was time. The ceremony was small. Just her squadron, a few friends, Holloway and his team. They presented her with a plaque, a model of her warthog, and a framed photo of her jet with the words Reaper 17 stenciled on the side. She thanked them, shook hands, and walked away. No tears, no regrets, just gratitude. She moved to a small town in Montana, bought a cabin near the mountains, and tried to figure out what normal life looked like. It was hard. The silence was too loud, the stillness too still. She missed the roar of the engines, the vibration in her chest, the weight of the stick in her hand. She missed the sky. One day she got a letter, no return address. Inside was a single photo, a group of SEALs standing in front of a memorial wall, on the wall a name, Holloway. She stared at the photo, throat tight. He'd been killed in action 6 months ago. She hadn't known. She sat down, the photo in her lap, and cried, not because he was gone, but because he'd lived, and because she'd known him. Because she'd flown for him, and because in some small way she'd mattered. The next day she drove to the nearest airfield. It was a small place, crop dusters and Cessnas. She talked to the owner, an old pilot with sun-weathered skin and knowing eyes. "I'm looking to fly again," she said. He looked her over. "You got experience," she smiled. "A little." He handed her the keys to a beat-up Cessna. "Runway's that way." She climbed in, fired up the engine, and took off. The sky opened up around her, vast and endless. She climbed higher until the world below was just a patchwork of fields and rivers. Then she leveled off, hands light on the controls, and just flew. No mission, no convoy, no one counting on her, just the sky. And for the first time in a long time she was at peace, because the sky was still there, and it always would be. Years later, Vila got a call, an invitation to speak at the Air Force Academy, a class on leadership, combat aviation, and resilience. She almost said no. But then she thought about Karis, about the young pilots coming up, facing the same doubts, the same whispers, so she said yes. The auditorium was packed, hundreds of cadets, faces young and eager. She stood at the podium, uncomfortable in a suit instead of a flight suit. She looked out at them, and for a moment she didn't know what to say. Then she started. "My name is Vila Marsh, call sign Reaper, and I'm here to tell you that you belong." She talked for an hour about Helmand, about Syria, about the convoy, the ambush, the missiles, about the fear, the doubt, the moments when she wasn't sure she'd make it. But she also talked about the people, the SEALs who stood when she walked in, the operators who trusted her, the pilots who followed her. "You're going to face people who don't believe in you," she said, "who think you don't belong, who think you're too small, too weak, too different. Ignore them, prove them wrong, not with words, with action." The room was silent. "Your call sign isn't something you choose, it's something you earn. And you earn it by showing up every single day and doing the work, by being there when it matters, by bringing people home." She paused. "The sky doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care about your gender, your background, your doubts. It only cares about what you do. So do the work, fly the missions. Earn the call sign. And when someone asks you why you're here, you look them in the eye and you say, because I belong." When she finished, the room erupted, applause, standing ovation. She stood there, awkward and uncomfortable, and just nodded. Afterward, a young cadet approached, a woman barely 20, eyes bright. Ma'am, I just wanted to say, I'm going to be a pilot because of you. Vila looked at her. What's your name? Cadet Reyes, ma'am. Well, Reyes, I look forward to hearing your call sign one day. The cadet smiled, saluted, and walked away. Vila watched her go and thought about the chain. The lineage, one pilot training the next who trained the next, a legacy passed down not in medals or plaques but in the sky. She walked outside into the cold Colorado air. The mountains loomed in the distance, snow-capped and eternal. Somewhere above, a jet screamed past, vapor trails cutting the sky. She watched it until it disappeared. Then she smiled, because the legacy wasn't hers alone. It belonged to everyone who'd ever put on a flight suit, strapped into a cockpit and taken off into the unknown. And it would go on long after she was gone. That was enough.